Hi there, everybody. Bob Hooey here from Alberta Speakers. My guest today is my long-term buddy, David Saxby from Spark Communications. David and I have known each other for, too many years to reveal. You'd know how old we are if you knew we met each other. Both of us are longtime charter members of CAPS. Both of us have been CAPS presidents at least once, twice, sometimes three times, who knows. And we've been in the speaking business for a long time, but we're still enjoying it, still getting out there on stages, except for now with the COVID thing, but that'll change. Anyways, David, let me ask you a quick question. Why did you start your speaking career?
Oh, well, interesting enough, when I first started my business, I was 23 years old and had a baby face. And I was out pitching advertising campaigns to major size companies, selling them millions of dollars worth of advertising. And I was always nervous. Every time I went into a board meeting, I'd look around the table and most of the guys around the table were old enough to be my dad or my granddad. And so I thought the only way I'm ever going to be successful in business is to get over my fear of presenting in front of a group. Because I had stage fright when I was a young kid. I was going to actually go into a music career. And walked off the stage at 19 years old and said, this standing in front of an audience and performing isn't for me. And so as a result, I thought, okay, well, I've got to look around, see what there is to be able to learn how to speak better, and wound up joining the JCs, Junior Chamber of Commerce, and they had an effective speaking program. So I took the program, finished the program. The fellow leading the program said, I want you to lead the next one. And I said, hold on a second here. Not what I intended to do. I'm an advertising guy. And we talked for a while and he said, well, how about we lead it together? And I went, yeah, okay, that'll work. So we led the program together. And then the next year he said, I want you to lead the next program. And I said, we've already had that conversation. I'm an advertising guy. I'm not a speaker. And he said, well, you have to do the program. And I said, why is that? He said, you're the only guy that knows the program. I'm leaving the country. And that's how I got into public speaking.
Wow.
So I started training volunteers in presentation skills, wound up getting asked to go all over Alberta and other provinces to present at different clubs and organizations and associations. And then one day somebody approached me and said, would you do a keynote for us? And how much do you charge? I wound up actually thinking like a consultant. Then I charged them for an hour of my time. And that was the last time I did that. And at that point, I decided, well, maybe this speaking thing is a good way to get some business, get some clients. So I wound up, going to business organizations, speaking in front of audiences anywhere from 15 people to 500. Usually wound up landing some clients, and the rest was history.
Wow. That's kind of like me with being a kitchen designer and doing presentations to get new clients. Interesting background. So let me ask you another question. So when the clients engage you, what do they get?
Well, it's interesting. I've always asked myself that question. What made me different, or why would clients hire me? And the term that people came up with kind of consistently was a creative catalyst. I was somebody that could help clients solve problems, develop ideas, and come up with unique ways of promoting their business, or in many cases, even reinventing their business in certain areas. And so that's how it happened. And I remember one client back in the 80s, we were talking and I asked him the question. I said, so why me? There's lots of options out there for advertising people. And he said, because you're the only person I know who's a creative guy who actually has a business mind.
Nice combination.
And so it was interesting, and that kind of stuck with me. And I thought, maybe I learned some of that from my dad as an architect, when he was running his business. And that's probably where it came from. And it's sort of been my mantra since then, is to always have both sides of the brain going, be a creative catalyst to clients.
I think it's nice when you bring value to them rather than just talk.
Yeah.
And I just find it interesting you use the term creative catalyst, because I just renewed my caps for next year, and they asked me for a title, and I went back to the one that I used to use, which was creative catalyst.
Ah, interesting.
Yesterday, in fact. So, because I used to use that for a long time on business cards, and then I just went to the more generic, author, speaker, blah blah blah, and so it's
Yeah.
interesting when we go through something like this COVID thing. You start reflecting on what you're doing or what you want to do, and in my case, I'm figuring, okay, I can't travel, but my message can. So we're starting to do more
You bet.
online stuff, like we did the international event that we did for Barcelona last weekend. That was supposed to be a live event, but we moved it online because we couldn't get there. So
Yeah,
find a way,
exactly.
and you bring that creativity to your clients. And I know you do that as well, which is probably one of the reasons why you and I are friends, as well as the fact that you helped me with my book covers and other things over the years. So let me ask another question, David. So what would be the ideal client for you? Somebody watching this, what would be the ideal client to say, hey, I'm his ideal client, I should call him?
Well, I think for me, probably the ideal client is small to medium-sized businesses who are looking to develop new directions in their business, perhaps reinvent their business a little bit, or find a way of communicating their message clearer to potential customers. And I've done a lot of work with service businesses, B2B, business to business organizations, and also professionals. So it's interesting because back in the 80s, things changed in the market for professionals. And so we started working with professionals with my marketing firm.
Yeah. Okay. Let me ask you a question that I haven't asked everybody else because it wasn't there then. So are you set up to be able to virtually assist your clients?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I'll tell you this a little later in one of your other questions, but I've done a little innovation myself for the next little while here, just to be able to do that, to work virtually with all of my clients.
Yeah. Well, it's something that we're obviously all of us are having to deal with because physically we are working from home, literally working from home, not just working out of our house because we're in our houses, and we have to find a way of connecting and still delivering value. And some of us fortunately have had some experience in using Zoom and other platforms, so we're okay. But some people are struggling. And
Yeah,
the whole idea is, you're not talking about doing broadcast quality stuff for your clients. You want to deliver good, solid value that they can see, they can hear, and you still deliver something to the people that are listening in. So
yeah, absolutely.
that's a good thing. I just wanted to check. I knew the answer to that, but I thought I'd let you tell people anyway. So let me ask you another question. This is one I enjoy asking. Tell us about some of your success stories.
Oh, well, I guess first off, one of the successes is actually having my own business, being in business for 40 years as of last fall.
Like I say, you started really young.
Yeah, I was 12.
Some of us would believe that, but none of them are on this call.
Like I said, I had a baby face. There was a reason. But, over the years, I think my career took off, I think, simply because of what I'd said earlier, which is I was able to see businesses differently, work with clients in a way that helped them innovate their own businesses. And also, I realized that over the years, originally went into the advertising business as an advertising freelancer, a creative guy, wound up building that up to an advertising agency. And then in the 80s, the whole business, industry, everything else in 1983 went south. Businesses were dropping like flies, businesses going bankrupt. And the advertising agency world, I don't know if you know the agency business, but we charged as advertising agencies, charged a 15% commission on media that we bought.
Mm-hmm.
So that meant you paid your overhead, your staff, everything out of that 15% of a media buy, and you carried the debt. So if you bought a television campaign worth hundreds of thousands of dollars and you were charging 15%, and that client went bankrupt, which they did in the 80s, you wound up holding the bill for that, and most agencies went bankrupt. So I looked at that whole situation and said, okay, this model's not working anymore. And what was happening as well is the media was starting to negotiate directly with clients and reduce the commissions. So in some cases, you're getting as little as 3% on a media buy.
Yeah, the risk level isn't worth it.
Risk level is huge. So interesting enough, I had started working with a client of mine that was doing practice management for legal practices.
Okay.
And he approached me and he said, he said, I can see how you could possibly grow your business if you add some services to your business. Because at that time, what was happening is agencies were separate from PR firms, were separate from design houses, were separate from other services. So first thing I did was I brought on a couple of partners with other skill sets. So PR and government lobby, built a marketing firm up, and we went after professional services. And instead of charging agency fees, percentage on commissions, we wound up charging a fee for service exactly like professionals did. So senior partner billed at one level, mid-range partner another level, and then staff, support staff at another level. And of course, went into professional practices and they went, oh, you're just like us. And the business grew exponentially. We went from 6 people to 23 people in about a year and a half, and wound up to the point where we were turning down 3 to 5 proposals a month, or a week, I should say. So eventually I wound up selling that business. And part of the way I built the business was doing presentations and talking to large groups of audiences and getting clients out of that. And so at that point, when I sold the business, I started Spark Communications and flipped the model around, used my marketing skills to build a speaking business. And from that, started speaking professionally. Well, I had actually been speaking since the early 80s professionally, but ramped it up, built a speaking business up. And then I realized in the mid 90s that the technology was going to become a major part of our industry. So I started working with clients to develop AGM presentations in multimedia so they could present them to their audiences. And then I realized when we formed our Speakers Association, CAPS, in Calgary, that speakers needed to use technology as well. Yeah. So I built that part of my business, and within about a year and a half, tripled the business because we were doing presentations. I was doing presentations, and my firm was also doing multimedia for presenters.
Well, so, I remember using your services myself.
Yeah. So it took off like a shot. Yeah. And I've tried to think of some of the other areas that I think that was one of the big jumps. And then a number of years later, I wound up doing long-term training contracts. And how I did that was I would go in and do a keynote, which would get people to realize that they needed to train their team or their staff or their company. So I do training and do a series of training programs. So a number of companies, I went in and I did 4 years worth of work with teams of people all across the country. And I realized that the keynote was really the launch for getting clients interested in the topics of sales and marketing and innovation.
How you get in the door.
It got me in the door, exactly. Yeah. And so out of that, what happened was my combination of presentation skills training, which I had done back in JC's, combined with technology, led me to work with a number of companies, and particularly 2 pharmaceutical companies nationally, to go in and train their psychiatrists that they worked with to present case studies. And the psychiatrists were brilliant people. Many of them had 2 and 3 degrees, but presentation skills was not part of their portfolio. Even worse than that, they didn't know how to build presentations. Yeah. So I would teach them how to build a presentation and then deliver it. And that took me through a 4-year period doing that kind of work. So lots of changes and lots of growth for me, and made life interesting as a speaker.
Well, and it's interesting you'd say that, because you think about some of the stuff that we've gone through, and you and I have known each other for a long time, with 9/11 and then 2008 and some of the other stuff. And looking back, almost every time we went through one of those major dips, I made a change in my business and came out the other side with something that was working. So I'm just waiting to see what brilliant idea I'm going to come up with for this, because I haven't yet, but I know I will, because I have in the past. That's just who I am.
Well, I think it's going to be holograms.
Yeah, well, actually, some of my speaker friends are starting to do that.
Yeah, I know.
And the technology is becoming a little more accessible. Well, for some people, I don't know if I'm really in that level yet, but the idea is there, and I'm sure. Well, even just the fact of using Zoom and some of this kind of stuff is something that 5 years ago nobody was doing, other than the odd time you were having a meeting or you had to talk to somebody online or something. But now to actually do things, and I'm doing things now where I'm working with people, like when we did the Destiny thing, we were working with people from about 10 different countries.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And it worked really well. There was a few little glitches, but pretty much it worked well. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe there's a model there of doing that moving forward. And because as I told him when we were doing the live event, I said, hey, I know a few people. And
Yeah.
so that's the idea of maybe pulling together teams and creating, maybe even creating a conference that we can bring to you, or I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
And the
So
same thing even with
interesting you mentioned that too.
Speakers, we can pull from that, because there's
Yeah.
some great people in this platform as well. We can co-op and work together on things.
Yeah, I think the technology's there now, and the internet speed is definitely there. So,
Big time.
the opportunity is there for sure. Yeah.
Well, we had 100 people on that call, and we had very little
Yep.
problems with the technology, like they used to have. Say to people, okay, turn your cameras off because of broadband width and blah blah blah, and
Yeah.
that really wasn't a problem, and that was all over the world. So you never know. So let me ask you one more question, and then we'll let you get back to doing the work that I know you're working on today. Anything new coming out?
Yeah, interesting enough, this COVID thing has got me thinking again. The whole creative catalyst thing, and something that I've been doing for a while, but I've actually formalized it and just going through a process now. I've been actually sitting on webinars and learning a bunch of new information, and I'm launching a coaching business, which is supported by an entire system and process that can get people back on track with their business to help them actually build their business. And it covers numerous aspects of the business, but it's a big chunk of it is marketing. So it's got a library of thousands of examples, marketing examples.
Okay.
And so working with people, what I'm going to be doing is I can work with them one-on-one, coaching, CEOs of companies. I can put them in a group coaching situation where they can learn from other people in the group, and also I can do some coaching. Or if they just want to do it themselves, they can go into the system and learn all of the information they need to know. They can see examples they can use and actually build their own communications marketing programs right from that. And so it's given me, it's something I've thought about for many, many years, and I was able to find a way of making this happen. So, and also the other thing that's happening, and you'll appreciate this, Bob, because you've been on my case for years, there'll be a book being launched as a result. So I'm hoping to have it ready for the summer, but I think it may be early fall, just to
Good
get
for you.
things. Yeah. So
I am really glad to hear you, because I've been, for those of you who don't know, that's one of the areas that I work in, and I nudge my speaker friends to take their wisdom and put it into pixels and print.
Yeah.
Actually, that's what we do with the Success Publications. The tagline is "Turn your ideas into pixels or print." Because the thing is, it's a way of leveraging what we do.
Yep.
It's a way of additionally, raising some extra money in terms of offering more value. And I think people are starting to appreciate that. So why not do it? And
For
thinking
sure.
the biggest
Yeah.
challenge, a lot of people who are speakers aren't necessarily writers, but they just need to learn how. And there are people who can help you with that. But the biggest thing I tell people, writing is actually fairly easy. Capture the moment or the idea, make the connection. The rest is editing.
Yeah, exactly.
And just getting people to do it. Like one speaker I'm working with, I've been nudging her for years, and she's finally doing it. And I said, okay, here's your commitment: 15 minutes a day writing on your area of expertise. That's it. Sit down in front of the computer and write for 15 minutes a day. If it's a bunch of garbage, that's okay, but get in the habit of writing on a regular basis. Eventually, you will have enough material that somebody can come in that's a professional editor and help you sculpt it, which is kind of, I use the term sculpting deliberately, because you have to chip out the stuff that doesn't belong. And then you have this amazing thing left over that becomes a book.
Exactly. Yep.
I love to see people doing things. And so you just made my day by telling me that you're doing it.
So the other thing that I'm actually launching as well, we've already launched actually, is I'm going to be running a leadership forum. Right now it's virtual, it's online, and I'm working in conjunction with other leadership forum leaders across North America, Mexico, and Canada. And so we have a Calgary chapter just kicking off. It started April 2nd. And every week we'll have international bestseller presenters that are going to be talking about various things that leaders need to know, especially in this situation with the whole COVID environment. And so we're looking for CEOs of companies that have 3 or more employees and who are interested in learning and growing through our forum and want to be able to share ideas with other CEOs. And so that's launched as of the beginning of this month.
Good for you. Good for you. Because I know there have been a few other ones over the years.
There sure has, yeah.
I remember coming down to Calgary to speak for, what was it? I think it was called the Advantage Board. They were bringing in C-level executives in some of their reports. And I spoke to everybody in the morning. And then I worked with the reports, doing 2-3 hours of actual in-person training afterwards, which is again the same idea of developing and building leaders. So
yeah, and I've done a similar thing as well for several of the executive forums, and so
it makes so much sense. I mean, I've often said that the best leaders are the ones who recognize and develop other leaders.
Exactly.
The most important thing you can do within your business, if you're leading, is to recognize and develop the people to step in and take over parts. And the smart business people get it. The other ones keep struggling.
Oh yeah.
They don't know us and they don't hire us, but hopefully if they see this video, they'll hire us. So
Exactly.
David, I want to say thank you for taking your time this morning to talk to us, and we want our viewers to visit Alberta Speakers and chat with you directly about how you can help them with their teams, programs, and events. I'm Bob Hooey, and this has been Alberta Speakers.
Thanks, Bob.